Thank you for joining us for this session on simplifying redundancy. Before we get started, I'd like to tell you a little more about what you can see in front of you. The screen is customizable, so you can drag and move the speaker and slide views to position them how you prefer. You'll also find speaker bios listed in the panel next to these. We've also included some resources on the topic of redundancy, which you can engage with during the session. We'll also send these out to you after the webinar. Lastly, you can see a Contact Us button so you can get in touch with us at any time. If you'd like to ask a question, there's a Q&A comment box at the bottom of the screen. All questions will be responded to after the webinar and we'll email a response directly to you, so please feel free to raise a question as we go. I'll hand over now to Ginny Hallam. Thanks, Ginny.
Welcome to our Empowering People Group webinar on simplifying redundancy for better people and business outcomes. Empowering People Group is made up of 4 incredible companies, all of whom share a passion for simplifying complexity in HR. The goal being to empower your people and drive business success. The group includes the brilliant Advisor Plus, who are employee relations transformation specialists, Halborns, of which I'm the client relationship director. Halborns offers straight talking employment law advice and solutions. Working Transitions, who deliver incredible career transition and coaching services, and Learning Nexus, who are true experts in digital learning. Together, our group mission is to deliver people solutions supported by tech that empower your people to be their best. So I must introduce you to our experts. We've got Rena Christou, who is Managing Director of Halborns, Caroline Moore, Managing Director of both Working Transitions and Learning Nexus, and Jenny Jones, HR Solutions Manager at Advisor Plus. So experts, I'll let you introduce yourselves. So Rena, you and I have worked together for a very long time. I'm guessing you've got stacks of great stuff to say, and people need to have their notebooks at the ready.
Absolutely, yes. It's been a few years to say the least, hasn't it? But you know me well, and yes, some practical insights to take away from today. So pens and notebooks at the ready if anyone still uses those.
Great stuff. And Caroline, you have to be one of the most practical solutions focused experts I've had the pleasure to work with.
Oh, thank you. That's really nice of you. And yes, I'm looking forward to today as well. I've always got my pen to the ready because I learn something new every time we get together. So yes, hopefully I'll be practical today as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And last but not least, Jenny, so you are always super pragmatic and very user-friendly in your approach.
So I'm really fortunate to have worked at Advisor Plus as part of their operational team over the last couple of years, and now more recently within the commercial consultancy side. And that's given me a fantastic insight into the day-to-day pain points of HR. So it's one thing I'm really passionate about, is ensuring businesses have people at the heart of their strategic decisions.
And that always comes across, Jenny. So really looking forward to hearing you speak today. Amazing. Well, thank you, experts. So shall we start by talking about what we've chosen to discuss today, which is simplifying redundancy processes. We know there's complexity in any change process, and when it comes to redundancies, you'll be dealing with legal complexity alongside managing the well-being and productivity of those impacted. Finding the right support and resources for all those affected can be challenging. We think keeping things simple in a redundancy process is key to empowering those supporting the process to focus on being as compassionate and people-focused as possible. So I think I'm going to direct the first question to you, Rena. Obviously, there's a legal process around redundancy. So is it even possible to simplify a redundancy process? What do we mean by simplifying redundancy in a legal context?
Yeah, so short answer is it's absolutely possible. I think there's this misunderstanding sometimes that the law and simple don't go hand in hand, but actually it is absolutely possible. So simplifying redundancy from a legal perspective, for me, means actually making the process easier to understand. And that's both the colleagues that are impacted, but also for, at manager level, because quite often it's a completely unknown process for them as well. So if you can clearly communicate what the process looks like, it actually supports you to keep control of the steps along the way, whilst also making sure that you're complying with any legal obligations that you might have. And for me, having that clarity and applying consistency are key to reducing the legal risks in any event, so during that process. But I think something that often gets missed, I think sometimes people can be so focused on getting the law right that sometimes what gets missed is actually applying it compassionately, which can create just as much risk for those that are impacted. So if redundancy processes aren't well managed and are deemed to be unjust, certainly from the perspective of the people that are being taken through them, yes, there's of course the risk of tribunal claims which could follow, but actually there's so many more risks beyond that. So for me, it's more about the risks that are far reaching and the long-term impact of those for those that are still within your business. So it could be employees that have been impacted by the process, it could be employees that have seen colleagues being taken through the process, or it could be managers that have had difficult conversations and haven't felt like you've really thought about them in all of it as well. So for me, that's actually a greater risk quite often than the tribunal risks, because generally the law gets ticked off, but it's that piece around having the confidence to understand what the steps are and what that process looks like to then apply it compassionately. And there's lots of ways that you can get around simplifying it. So you could engage with partners who are experts in redundancy to ensure that they are able to support you to drive that consistency and to really understand what that process looks like. It could be, which we've seen organisations that we support do recently, investing in training for the managers or employee representatives to make sure that, again, they feel that they're clear on what's expected of them during that process, so that they can support colleagues confidently and sensitively during the conversations that they might need to have. And I think the main thing to kind of flag is it's inevitable that there's going to be an emotional toll to job losses. If you get to the end of a redundancy process and you haven't managed to save jobs, or you haven't managed to save all jobs, which quite often is the case, making sure that you've taken people through the process compassionately and fairly generally means that they're leaving as what I call positive alumni. So far as possible, they're leaving your organisation in a positive way, rather than focusing on frustration and resentment they might have from an unjust process. So compliance and compassion can and should go hand in hand. And I think understanding that and being clear on what process you are following from the get-go, for me, makes it a much more positive experience for everyone that can focus at the person at the heart of it.
I love that phrase, positive alumni. What a great phrase. If we could all achieve that at the end of a process, you say, what a great result that would be. And what about, is there a role technology can play? I mean, do we think that technology is workable? Can it play a part in simplifying redundancy processes? Who shall I ask that to? Jenny, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So large scale redundancies can be really admin heavy. So that varies from, coordinating the consultation meetings to accurately and efficiently capturing an accurate reflection of the notes of what's happened in that conversation. So as well as obviously communicating with employees throughout that process. So there's a really heavy admin burden on HR and everyone that's involved in that process. And also many of those processes are repeatable, and so they don't always require that expertise of HR. So the elements could be better managed by technology, and that just helps to overall reduce that admin burden. So at Advisor Plus, we've been supporting customers for decades with redundancy, so we're really aware of the pain points that organisations face when they're managing large scale consultations. So we've actually developed a technology that is specifically helping streamline many of those repeatable processes. So we call it Meter Manager, and it has proven to be a really well received tool in transforming redundancy processes and just helping to simplify them for everyone. So it's this sort of kind of technology that organisations need to invest in, and then that allows them to free their people up, and then they can obviously focus on the compassionate redundancies, and that allows better business outcomes as well. So I think almost a tech-enabled approach to compassionate redundancy blends that technology and data management with consistency, and all of which allows people to focus on the empathy in the process. So our mantra is to put technology to work, to simplify the work of people, and redundancy situations are an example of where freeing people up to focus on what they do best in difficult situations really makes all the difference.
Yeah, no, I really agree with all of that. I mean, I've seen Meeting Manager in practice, and it's such a great system. I can understand why it is that you've referenced that, just to kind of keep the process focused and simplify it, as you say. But what about, so, the impact on individuals? So we've obviously got a situation that could have a profound impact on mental health when we're dealing with redundancies, a profound impact on productivity, not only, I guess, for those affected directly, but broader teams may also be impacted. So do we think there are strategies that we can support with the impacts that redundancies might have? Caroline, what are your thoughts there?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it starts obviously from a careful planning and an effective communication point of view. You know, if an organisation can plan effectively, then you can put into place the right support to minimise the emotional toll, which we've talked about already on this session. And this can include, you know, having mental health first aid options available, preparing training for those that are managing the communication and consultancy process, and offering obviously outplacement and career transition support, all of which can support people through what is a very difficult time. I think the problem is what tends to happen, as we've talked about the process, people really do get hung up on that process. They're fearful of litigation and they forget about the human element in all of this and the actual impact on people's lives. So simple, direct, transparent communication is vital. Showing compassion means recognising that human element and the emotional impact of the risk to jobs, especially during, you know, the challenging economic times that we're facing at the moment. When breaking the news, it's about communicating in a way that acknowledges and reflects the impact of the situation on individuals. And I just don't think that can ever be, you know, kind of like forgotten, because for some people this is a life-changing moment, especially when they've been in jobs for a significant number of years. So to be mindful of the channels, you know, you use to communicate with those individuals, and so that you've got consistency is key. You know, we've worked with organisations where people have been notified by text that they're being made redundant, and they've been in that job for 20 years. I personally can't imagine what that must be like. It can feel almost like a bereavement, and I'm sure it does. So for organisations, you know, sharing the reasoning behind the decision is key. It's important to be open about the, you know, what's happening and the steps that they're about to take, you know, to avoid and minimise the job losses, and explaining how the process is going to work and to ensure it is as fair as possible. You know, there is a process when it comes to redundancy. It's a very clear process, but, you know, let's make sure that that's followed, but in a human way, and taking into account that we're dealing with individuals, and it is going to be a highly emotive time for any organisation, including those people that are actually, you know, left in situ as well. So be clear about that process and the timescales that are involved, to minimise uncertainty, so that people can have, you know, a level of peace of mind. Use empathetic and sincere language to convey how much you care about the impacted individuals or employees. By communicating with openness and transparency, you can help alleviate the stress and anxiety associated with redundancies, and it does foster trust and creates an understanding amongst those parties involved. At Working Transitions, we offer career transition support, so that's outplacement, and that's something that we provide to individuals that are impacted. So considering something like outplacement to support those individuals that are impacted demonstrates your commitment to employee well-being without a doubt, and it helps support employees who are facing challenges in what to do next. Where do they find their next opportunity? You know, provide them with career coaching, support them through guidance, help them actually accept that career transition, support them with things like CV writing, interviewing, networking, all of the things that they've probably not done for a very long time. And even if they have, we all know that things change, you know, very rapidly in that recruitment world. And I think it's important to consider the impact on the broader team. So Rena mentioned earlier on, you know, that the people who are actually having to deliver this process, it's not something that they do day in, day out. So supporting them and making sure that they are armed with the tools and the necessary skills and support to be able to deliver those hard messages is absolutely key. So I think, yeah, absolutely, you know, it is all about mental health, in making sure that throughout the process that is protected and looked after.
Wow, I have learned so much today. Thank you so much for that great response. I'm going to put you all on the spot, experts, I think, as my last question for you. If you could choose one piece of advice to help HR professionals simplify redundancy processes, what would it be? Shall we go to Caroline first?
So embed a culture of empathy throughout the organisation, ensuring that technology aids your efforts in supporting employees emotionally and practically through this career transition, and make sure you help employees understand the situation, including the people who remain in the organisation, as they'll be impacted just as much, only in a different way. Empower managers to have those difficult conversations through coaching or training solutions. There can be a huge mental well-being impact without a doubt. So make sure that people know where they can go to get support from a mental well-being perspective. And as we talked about earlier, mental health first aiders, having those available is something that you should consider or could consider. If you can spot the signs of distress at any early stage and provide support, then you can help individuals and you can support the business as well, the brand, but you can also, more than anything, make the redundancy process much more manageable for everybody concerned.
Fantastic. I love that. What about Rena? What do you think?
One thing, okay. So if I had to pick one thing, I think it would say, I'm going to pick two: plan and transparency. So by that, what I mean is, it comes back to this process point of, if you want to simplify the process, plan out your steps in advance. That doesn't mean predetermining the outcome, but just knowing the journey that people will be taken through, so that you can be upfront with the managers that are progressing those conversations, but also the employees that are impacted. And that transparency of the overview of that process means that you can then focus on, right, rather than delving into what are the steps, we know what they are, and we can make sure that we've got the person at the heart of it, so that we're genuinely going into those discussions with an open mind, that's geared around how do we, you know, either save jobs where possible, but minimise the impact where that's not possible, so that people, you know, as I've said before, I know that you kind of picked up on that phrase, didn't you? But if that you are parting ways, that you're doing that in a positive way as possible, and creating that positive alumni, because, you know, reputationally, both internally and externally, these are the things that people remember.
Absolutely. Right, Jenny, Rena and Caroline have been amazing with those answers, but they've not stuck to the one thing. Can you do it? What's your one at simplifying redundancy process?
So I would say prioritising platforms that can offer the flexibility, but also the ability to really customise to your needs, and that'll help to handle those repetitive tasks. And that's really going to free up your time so that you can focus on all the human connections that matter the most, and obviously all that empathy that we've spoke about. So leveraging data insights to understand employee concerns, anticipate the needs, and tailoring your support services needs for a more seamless transition journey. So that would be my answer.
Brilliant, you did it. Thank you. Well, thank you so much, experts. You've been amazing. The insights today has been really quite phenomenal, I think. I've learned so much. For those listening, to find out more about how Empowering People Group can simplify redundancy processes, or any large-scale change process, to deliver better outcomes for your people and your business, please do get in touch with us. As you'd expect, having mentioned tech throughout this session, we have a QR code at the end of the session. So if you want to get in touch, please scan on the QR code and the details are there. Thank you for joining us.